let's start on number 10. So again, to find these, let's start off with this. There are coordinates, so put the parentheses with the comma in the middle. And this is going to be the same for all of them. This is everything on the whole page, actually. The x-intercept, our answer is going to be x equals, which means y is 0. And same thing with the y-intercept. You're trying to find out what y equals. So if you're trying to find out what y equals, that means the x is what's 0. So this is true on all of them. When you're finding intercepts, find the x-intercept, it means the y is 0. Because you're trying to figure out what x actually is. Same thing here. If you're trying to find out the y-intercept, it means x is 0. So we'll find out what y equals, and we'll have our coordinate 0, comma, whatever number we figure out. Okay. So for each of these, let's go ahead and do that. Let's plug in y equals 0 here. So I'm going to write negative 2x plus 3 times 0 equals 6. Now the 3 times 0 will just be 0, and if you add 0 to anything, it stays 0. So when you plug in 0 to these, it really just cancels it out, and you're left with negative 2 times what is 6. And you can just divide both sides by negative 2. So I got x equals negative 3. So I can go over here, put my negative 3 for my x-intercept, and then you can go down here and graph negative 3, comma 0. Everything you're graphing is going to be on an axis. There won't be anything in any of the quadrants here. It's all going to be on either the x-axis or the y-axis. And then let's do the same thing. Remember, there's two parts, but this time plug in 0 for y. So we're going to go, for x. So we're going to plug in negative 2 times 0 plus 3y equals 6. But again, the negative 2 times 0 just equals 0, and the 0 plus 3y, all that just cancels out, and we're left with 3 times what is 6. And when you divide both sides, you get 2. So 0, comma 2, that's right here. And then just using those 2 points only, you can use your straight edge and draw your line. So, take a straight edge. And there's your line. So this gives you, it's graphing by using intercepts. Instead of doing slope intercept and finding out what's the rise and what's the run and all that, we can do it this way instead. So there's 2 ways of doing the same thing. Now, you can see that the numbers you've been given are kind of nice. Meaning 2 and 3 both divide into 6 evenly. So you can get these whole number answers. But if you got fractions, it's okay too. You can do it that way and still get an answer. So like here you get, right, 2 and 5 both go into 10. So you know you're going to get some nice numbers. So let's practice. Let's do this one together too. Okay, so first one, plug in 0 for y. So negative 2x minus 5 times 0 equals 10. And again, this part with the 0 ends up equaling 0. And we have negative 2 times what is 10? And divide by negative 2. So 10 divided by negative 2 is negative 5. So we got negative 5, comma 0. So go to the center, go left 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's the x-intercept. Do one more, but plug in 0 for x. Negative 2 times 0 minus 5 times what is 10? This part will just equal 0. Negative 2 times 0 is 0. So you're left with negative 5 times what is positive 10. And when you divide both sides by negative 5, you get negative 2. 0, negative 2. Start the origin, go down 2. And then use your straight edge. There we go. Now, I'll show you a special case where 12, you can see there's no y variable. So if you're missing the variable, right, there's no y. No y variable. So there's not going to be a y-intercept. And you might remember from previous things that previous homeworks, if it's x equals, you know that's a, what kind of line? If it's x equals, that's a vertical line going through x equals 2. So you can use some of the prior problems we've been working on to help you get your answers on these as well. So our x-intercept is just 2, 0. So that's where it goes through. X equals 2, x equals 2. So this 2 and this 2 are the same 2. I know it goes here because it's the x variable. If this was a y, I know it would go second. Okay, so I'll let you work on a few of those. Above is just the same thing but without the graph. So remember on all of these, which one is 0 for the x-intercept? The first or the second number? Yeah. So for all of these, you can go ahead and put these in ahead of time. Right? If you're trying to find the x-intercept, meaning you're trying to get an answer for x, that means the y is 0. Right? Same thing if you're trying to find a y-intercept. If you're trying to find some number for y, that means the x must be 0 for each of these. So you can plug in all these zeros ahead of time and then go back and figure out, well, what should the x be. And there's a way of doing this that sometimes is helpful. People like this. You can do it a little bit mentally. And there's different names for it. Some call it the thumb rule, that if you want to plug in 0 for y, you use your thumb and you cover up the y. And what's left over is what you have to solve. So if I cover up the y here, then you have left over x equals 2. So I know that this is 2. If you cover up the x for 0, if x equals 0, y equals 2. So that's a little trick that we use. You can do this in number 2 as well. Plug in 0 for y, so cover up y. You can see 3 times what is 9? 3, right? 3 times 3 would be 9. So the x equals 3. And same thing here, plug in 0 for x. So if you cover that up, y equals 9. And it could be a pretty fast process. So down below actually shows all the steps here. But we could have done the same thing. We could have, right here, when we plugged in 0, right there, for y, I could have done this and said negative 2 times what is 6. And I could have got, oh, negative 2 times negative 3 is 6. And gotten my negative 3 here. Same thing here. I could have covered up the negative 2x right here and said 3 times what is 6, and I would have got 3 times 2, and y equals 2. So down below I showed all the work, but above you can see there's another way of doing that as well. And remember, if it's missing something like number 5, x equals negative 4, well, which one would this go in? Would the negative 4 go here or go here? Yeah, right here, because it's the x, right? This is an x, this is a y. So it makes sense that the negative 4 would go right here. And the fact that there's no y here means it does not have a y-intercept. There's no y variable to get an intercept. So that's a vertical line going through negative 4. think, yeah, like number 8. Number 8, you can see there's no x, so there's not going to be an x-intercept here. It's missing the x. Right? And the y-intercept is just, where does the 5 go? Does it go here or does it go here? Well, since it's the y variable, the y is always second, so that goes here. And that means this must be 0. So if it's missing a variable, it still works. It's just that one of them will not have an intercept point. Okay. So we'll spend the rest of the period working on that. Tomorrow we'll do another day of this. We're not going to do a Khan Academy on this. I looked at the assignment and it's not that good. The numbers are too big and too weird. So I'm just going to stick with these assignments for today and tomorrow. Okay, so try to get this done. And we got about a half hour, so lots of time to finish. And if you finish early, you can go on Khan Academy, finish anything up, look at your zeros. I'm showing some people how to print out missing assignments. You can print from the Chromebooks now, so if there's something that's missing, I can show you how to print, and you can get any missing assignments you need.